views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and today is Tuesday, August 31st. Coming up, Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs, NAICA, joins us to share how they're helping spread the word to ensure that the Bronx knows about critical rent relief through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERAP. Then, with the school year fastly approaching, our Montefiore expert joins us to share advice on how to help children prepare for the classroom setting after an entire year of learning remotely. After that, while clean energy and green forward thinking is a good thing, Bronx activists and advocates say that planning must involve and hear the community in this growing green revolution. We'll discuss this and more with South Bronx Unite. And we'll learn about The X, a new and upcoming docuseries seeking to educate viewers about the Bronx by taking a deeper look into New York City's most underrated borough. So please stick around. Open BXRX Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. The state Senate recently held a hearing regarding the slow rollout of rent relief through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The program was approved in April with $2.7 billion from both state and federal government going towards families, individuals, and landlords affected by the COVID pandemic. And now community organizations like the Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs, or NAICA, are helping spread the word to ensure that Bronxites know about this critical assistance. Joining us now to share more is Marlen Valarezo, Executive Director of Legal Services at NAICA. Welcome, Marlen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Of course. So, as we mentioned, there's this emergency rental assistance program. But first, we want to learn a little bit about NAICA and your mission for anyone who's not familiar.
So NAICA was incorporated in 1974 as a not-for-profit to provide assistance to residents of the Bronx. Since 1992, NAICA has been providing free legal representation to low-income tenants of the Bronx, with our primary goal to educate, uplift residents in our community.
Thank you for that, Marlen. So as we mentioned, the current eviction moratorium is set to expire today, August 31st. But President Biden and the CDC temporarily extended the eviction ban through October 3rd in communities with high levels of COVID transmission due to the Delta variant. What will this mean for Bronxites, and what are their rights right now?
So I've been informing everyone, since it has yet to be extended, that they please apply for, if they owe rent arrears, for the ERAP assistance. This will stay the court case if there is one. Also, they should apply for the CDC declaration form. They will fill it out and send a copy to the landlord. Please maintain a copy. This will also stay the eviction until October 3rd. If they do not do these and are not protected, this could lead to mass evictions throughout the state.
And we definitely don't want that. You know, our Bronx courts, we don't want them to be packed with eviction cases and people facing the loss of their homes. So if this can prevent it, then please apply. Without further ado, please tell us about this ERAP program.
So since June 1st, NAICA is one of two agencies in the Bronx that have been assisting tenants with submitting ERAP applications. In order to qualify, the tenants must be owing rent. They must be below the 80 AMI, which is the area median income. So example, a family of one, they must earn less than $66,850. And we can provide the numbers if anybody has any questions regarding other incomes, and they can just call NAICA at our hotline and we'll give them more information. Also, they have to provide us information regarding their income, their lease, their birth certificates, their socials, if they have any. They have to give us ID for the applicant, show us proof of what the arrears are. So example, rent receipt, rent breakdown. I want to reiterate, because we've said this over and over again and it's still becoming a problem, citizenship is not a requirement. You do not have to provide a social if you do not have one, but please I know I've had some calls at the hotline that said, hey, I'm applying for my citizenship papers. I just want to make sure this is okay. Call your immigration attorney, or you can call the public charge hotline. Ask these questions. The public charge hotline is 1-800-354-0365. I'd rather you be safe and make sure that it's okay to apply before you apply and then find out, wow, this affected my paperwork that I was applying for, my citizenship. So please do that. Also, we've been told that the program is open until the funds are exhausted. As of yet, they have not been exhausted. Mm-hmm. And yes, people have told me, I've heard that they applied June 1st and they still haven't heard. The approval started coming in about 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. That was the first approval. And yes, it had taken a while. And I think it's with any new program, it takes a while to get underway for the people who are staffing it to understand how to review an application. What's a good application? What's not? So within the last 2 weeks, we started to get approvals for our clients. It's been exciting all around in NAICA. We're seeing approvals left and right. And also I heard, like, we haven't seen any, but we've heard there's been at least one denial. If they receive a denial, there will be information on the notice of how to appeal that denial. But with the approvals, like I said, it was taking about 6 to 8 weeks. Now it should be taking, they told us, 4 to 6 weeks because they've streamlined the process a little bit better, which is great because people were calling me panicked because they applied June 1st and hadn't heard anything. Right. And so we are, like I said, one of the agencies assisting in the Bronx tenants. So this means that it is an online application. Mm-hmm. Obviously, not everyone in the Bronx has accessibility to the internet, to a computer, or are just hesitant around technology, right. Which is why we have our hotline number and our email address that they can reach out to us. And if they want us to assist them, we will do it virtually. So we keep everyone safe. We will ask all the questions while we're doing the application online over the phone. So it's very low tech. We'll call you, we'll say, okay, we'll start the application together, we'll do it, and we'll submit it for you. And then if they cannot, they can also take pictures of their documents and send them to us via email. But if they cannot, we also make appointments. We have a queue. We make an appointment and the tenants are coming in person. So we do on an average day have at least 10 to 15 clients who will come in at their scheduled appointment. They're like 15, 20-minute appointments where we will take copies of all their documents and upload them for them. And we will give you your application number, your confirmation numbers, just so you feel more positive that everything's going well.
Got it. Thank you for that, Marlen. And what types of documentation do people need in order to apply? Can you specify what they need to prepare?
So example, for proof of income, it could be pay stubs. It could be W-2. It could be your income tax from last year. If you have no income, you can attest a self-attestation, which you can get notarized, or we can even, when they come to our office, we have staff who will notarize for them, saying that you currently have no income. They can have SSI award letter. It can be an unemployment letter. These are all proof of income. If they have the birth certificates for themselves as well as the family members, if they have a social for themselves as well as the family members, an ID for the applicant only. Yet again, New York City provides those IDs. If you are undocumented, you can get a New York City ID. The lease, if they do not have one, at least something showing what the rent amount is. So I've had people say, well, I don't have a lease. Well, we just need to see what is the monthly rent as well as what you owe. So we don't want to submit our application if we're not clear in the numbers and what's owed. Also, if they owe Con Edison as well as rent, we can do that application for them at the same time. So I've had clients coming in and owing $8,000 in Con Edison, and that is done in conjunction with rent arrears. So that's a big aid when people are out there owing so much in electricity bills and utility bills. So I let them know, but unfortunately it has to be in conjunction with owed rent. If they do not and they only owe utility, I'm still encouraging them to go to Access HRA or go to call 301 for HRA and get a one-shot deal done for that.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you for that information. And how and when will ERAP funds be released? What's the process for funding releasing? Is it going straight to the tenant, straight to the landlord? Who's it going to?
It is going to the landlord. So this is a two-step process. So the tenant does their portion, they're given the application number, and then the landlord must do their portion. The tenant is under no responsibility to have to call their landlord to say, you must apply and do your part. OTDA is doing that, but we are encouraging them. If you know your landlord, you have a good relationship, call them, let them know you've done it, because it may be a couple of days before they're informed. So that those couple of days are the days where the tenants are like, wait, my landlord hasn't done it yet. So we've encouraged them, hey, if you do have a good relationship, reach out to your landlord, let them know you've done your portion, and they can, as long as you give them the application number, they can start their portion. but OTDA is calling the landlord. Once the both portions are done, it will be reviewed, and then if everything's great, it'll be approved. We've been told that tenants can now make an OTDA account, so that way they can look at their status, they can resume applications. In the beginning, there was only the ability to submit the application once. Now you can actually resume it as long as you have an OTDA account. So that means you can start your application, stop for a day or two, and then resume it later. But this information will be in there, so it'll say whether it's approved, whether it's under review, whether it's approved and payment has been made or payment is pending, or whether it's been denied. And this will let you have that information to say, okay, let me call and find out why was it denied, and hopefully you'll be getting the notice, which is what they've told us, directly to you. And that notice will explain why you've been denied and also what the appeals process is, because you can't appeal a denial.
Got it.
And the money will go directly, to the utility company or to the landlord. I'm sorry, I didn't answer that.
No, thank you for that, for clearing that up. So I have a pressing question as well, Marlen. So can tenants be evicted if they have a pending application with ERAP, or are they protected?
Right now, they're protected. Now, what we've heard is that they're protected as long as it's pending and then eventually approved. That's why I'm saying if it is denied, please reach out, try to do that, the information regarding the appeal, look at it, trying to follow through with an appeal, because it is really important, because that's how the stay, you are protected and the stay is in effect.
Got it. And can you share the importance of community organizations such as NAICA assisting community members with this process, and also through your free housing legal services and eviction prevention program, if you can just share that as well?
Well, we've been pretty vital. We're one of two, like I said, in the Bronx who are funded to assist with ERAP application. And we've been pretty vital, which I was not expecting. I knew a lot of the younger generation would be able to submit these applications on their own online.
Right.
But we've had a large majority of that younger population come to us saying, we just don't understand how to navigate this application and we need help. And they call us, we assist them, like I said, over our phone lines and help them do the application. They don't know how to upload the documents. And this is elderly and young all across the board saying, I don't know how to upload these documents. The site is confusing. We've been doing it so long at this point, and we were trained that we know how to basically navigate. And when there is a problem, we have the proper people to reach out to an OTDA to say, we're having an issue, this is not going through, or I did this application and I don't see the documents, and we can get feedback for them.
Yes.
So that's also assisting us, because I know some people have had issues with the OTDA hotline, which I'm sure you heard at the hearing, that they called and either different operators sometimes give you different information. Or I've had people on language where most of my staff is primarily bilingual. So we've able to communicate with a large population in their language. They call sometimes a hotline and they can't reach somebody very quickly in their own language, which becomes burdensome and also becomes frustrating for them.
Right.
So they can reach out to us, call us, and we'll assist them. I've even checked status for people, even though that should be something they should call TDA. We do it all, basically. We will assist them as best we can. We assist, and we also assist landlords. I want to make sure landlords know that. We are also assisting small landlords to apply. So we've had landlords in our office and we are uploading their documents and assisting them as well.
Thank you for all that, Marlen, and your work is valuable in our community. Thank you for providing this information. Before we go, how can people contact NAICA at this time for help with the ERAP application? Please provide that information.
They can call our ERAP hotline, which is 718-866-0038. They can also email us at NAICAERAP@NAICANY.org. And if they need assistance with our legal department, which yes, I failed to say that, we do have attorneys. We will represent you if you're in housing court. They can also call our tenant helpline at 718-538-4830. They can speak to an attorney and that will give them information. So whether or not they're in court, they can actually get assistance from an attorney. So example, they need help understanding their current lease. That's something you can ask an attorney about. Or if you do need help with an attorney, one of the attorneys on the line will give you a referral to our agency so that we can have assist you with an attorney.
Perfect. Thanks again, Marlen. Marlen Valarezo is the Executive Director of Legal Services at NAICA. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. New York City schools, the largest district in the country, are set to reopen September 13th, fully in person, 5 days a week, without a remote option provided to kids last year, while our youth face the highest rates of emotional and mental stress. Here to share advice on how to help children prepare for the classroom setting again after learning remotely all year is child psychologist Joane Cardin. Dr. Joane Cardin. Welcome, doctor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So I want to get right into it, doctor. So a recent study found that rates of depression and anxiety among youth doubled during the pandemic compared to pre-pandemic levels. As a child psychologist, what changes have you noted in your young patients this past year?
So definitely for the general population, we've also been seeing that. Specifically, I work with children who have learning disabilities and comorbid mental health symptoms. So for them, I've definitely seen an increase in low motivation, just not wanting to engage in anything throughout the day, not wanting to even engage in their treatment here, not wanting to do their schoolwork, not wanting to go to school. All of these have just increased dramatically. They're looking sadder. A lot of their body language is more droopy and not making those eye contacts, along with just negative comments about themselves, their lives, and just how things are.
Thank you for sharing, doctor. This is definitely, frightening to learn, especially with the school year approaching so quickly. What were some of the causes of this surge in depression and anxiety in these children?
So, although it's hard to say exactly because so much has gone on in the last year, but some things that I've definitely seen is the uncertainty of just not knowing who can get sick, who is sick, what are they allowed to do, what are the rules that they're supposed to be following. Their rules just kept changing no matter where they were. Some of the kids didn't know if they were supposed to be in person the next day or remote learning the next day. Were they supposed to be on Google Classrooms? Were they supposed to just watch a PowerPoint? How are they turning in their homework? So a lot of that played a role. Also, just not being able to be with friends and just socializing. A lot of our kids, that's their happy place. That's where they can go and just be themselves. And now being home with no privacy, no space for themselves has been very, very difficult for them. And then just the fact that they are falling behind even more so than they were before. And that is just taking a toll on them.
Yeah, speaking of that, doctor, I know that remote learning has created a knowledge gap for a lot of children, especially those who could not stay connected due to either a lack of technology or the digital divide, which we have faced in exacerbated numbers here in the Bronx due to the pandemic. How has this also impacted children's mental and emotional health?
So this is something that has been known even pre-pandemic, that individuals with learning disabilities are way more at risk at experiencing mental health symptoms. So studies have shown that kids who have learning disabilities, 42% of them will have a mental health diagnosis at one point. 5.7% have in one study had suicidal ideation, 14.5 in another study had depression, and you're 2 times more likely to have anxiety if you have a learning disability. So those are just having the disabilities. Now, if you take all of the children who are did not have a learning disability before, had not struggled with learning before, you're going to start seeing a lot of these signs as well, just because they're used to being comfortable, confident in their academics. And now that hasn't been with their last year. So a lot of uncertainty and worries are going to come up, and it's important to look out for those signs.
And what exactly are these signs and behaviors that parents should look out for in their children that indicates something may be wrong?
So the simple answer is just anything that's out of the norm for your child. However, more specifically, if you have someone who normally didn't argue or didn't have any difficulties in terms of going places, they're starting to say, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. They'll start talking about more headaches and stomach aches than they were having before. You might see some aggression either in their wordings or just maybe even physically And that's a sign that something is up. Our kids, often it's a lot easier for them to be angry and look angry rather than actually show their sadness and worry. So it's important to look at that. You might see them sleeping less, sleeping more, eating more, or not wanting to be hungry, and just overall avoidance of not wanting to do anything, or just taking a step back and really just staying in their little spot.
Locking themselves in their rooms, things of that nature, right, doctor?
Yeah.
Definitely indicators to look out for. Thank you for that. What can parents and teachers do to help our children transition to in-person learning more smoothly this coming school year?
So I saw you put up one of the slides from a recent webinar that we held. So I believe it's on our Montefiore webpage. And we have, if you can reference this webinar, it's available in 6 different languages. But the most important thing is being able to create that space to talk and listen to your child.
Yes.
A lot of them are not going to want to say that they're anxious or that they're sad just for fear of they need to toughen up and not say anything. But it's important that we show them that we understand what they're feeling. If you just simply take, for example, when you go on vacation or you're at the end of the weekend and you have to go back to work the next day, all of us, we don't want to. We would prefer to be at home just hanging out with our families or doing something else. And we're still going to get up and go into work in the morning because it's important. The kids, they go through the same thing. So letting them know that this is normal. They're going to be scared. They're going to be worried. They're going to be sad. And that's okay. And then taking them through what they can do. If they like deep breathing, work on deep breathing exercises. Stress balls are great. Any exercise, music, dancing, whatever they do to relax themselves is a good idea. I would plan for, if you're able to go visit the school and kind of get started on practicing the routine the night before and the day before, that would be great. And just resetting up bedtimes and meal times like they would be during the school year. My best advice, or maybe not best advice, but the advice I like to give is breaks. So when I say breaks, I don't mean 30 minutes breaks. I mean like 2 minutes here and there where they can just do whatever's appropriate for the situation that they're in to just calm down, reground themselves to where they're at, and then keep going with the work or keep going with getting ready for school.
Doctor, out of curiosity, I've been seeing a lot of parents use these little fidget toys, these button pressing toys. Are those efficient for students or kids with anxiety and depression?
So anything that can keep their, a lot of our kids with anxiety or ADHD will get fidgety. So anything that keeps their hands occupied might be helpful. I think it's very important to keep in mind what's allowed within the classroom and what's allowed in the situation. So at some points it could be more distracting than helpful. And at the same time, if it is something that's able to help them stay calm and focus, it's something that you can speak with the teacher or whatever environment they're in on if it's appropriate.
Gotcha. Conversely, what should parents and teachers avoid doing?
So I think the one thing that we often do, and even as a psychologist, I find myself doing, is we're very quick to reassure our children of it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. We do want to reassure them, and at the same time, doing it in a way without letting them know we heard them can be dismissive. So I would recommend on the other side of just more saying, I know it's going to be scary, I know it's going to be sad, and you can do this, and we're here to help you. So just make sure you're not ignoring the fact that they do have feelings and that we need to let them know we heard them.
Right. I think it's important to validate those feelings and also listen. I think that's a big takeaway here, right, doctor?
Very important.
I wanted to learn also how doctors are working with school administrators to implement policy changes when it comes to students and children like the children that you work with as well, because, you know, it's a different dynamic to work with students with disability versus other students in schools in this upcoming learning environment.
So a lot of the time is either the schools will reach out to us or we'll reach out to the school and try to do an individualized plan for each child. It's hard to really do a whole policy that'll help all of the children in the same way. So for us on our end, we're working really on trying to do an individualized program with each of the children we see. And in the chance that in those situations that they ask for help, you know, we're happy to help.
Right. And I also wanted to learn about preventative care. You know, a lot of parents may be avoiding going to the doctor at this time and they're afraid to take their kids as well. But the importance just about well checks and also visiting child psychologists if that's something that a child needs.
Yes, definitely. I think, you know, most hospitals or at least here, we are implementing COVID safety checks and things like that to keep our patients safe. And a lot of the treatment, although we did do it through telehealth, in some sense, it's not as good as when you're in person. So it's important to keep those appointments.
Right. And I think we should also bring up the vaccine during this time. I know a lot of parents are a little hesitant about that. Doctor, how are you managing speaking to parents about possibly getting a vaccine for their children before the school year begins?
So a lot of what I've been asking parents to do is speak with their pediatricians, speak with MDs that are well-versed or more versed in understanding the vaccine to answer any of their questions. And then also allowing your child, especially if they're an older adolescent, to ask these questions as well and to be part of those meetings as they are approaching adulthood. Keep kind of having them, show them how to, these advocacy skills.
Right. Thank you for that, Doctor. And before we go, can you please leave our youth with a message on preparing for back to school, as well as for parents and teachers as well?
Yeah. So the main thing I can say is it's going to be hard. People are going to get worried. You're going to get worried. You're going to get sad. And that's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be worried. And we made it through the last year. You made it through the last year. So it shows that you're strong enough to be able to apply whatever got you through last year through this year.
I really took that as a message for myself and the Bronx community too. So thank you for that, Doctor. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And to find out more information from Montefiore, as well as to see those slides on their website, you can visit montefiore.org and follow Montefiore Health System on social media. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Trans.
Welcome back. The passing of President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill indicates the green revolution and a green future is coming to the country. But what does this mean for the Bronx? While clean energy and green forward funding is a good thing, community activists and advocates say that planning must involve and hear the community. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Mychal Johnson, co-founder and longtime activist of South Bronx Unite. Welcome, Mychal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sanjay.
Of course. So really important discussion on this green revolution that is emerging, the clean energy revolution we have, which is a great thing for our community. But as I mentioned, Mychal, this shift to clean green energy, we anticipate more proposals for alternative energy forward projects here in the Bronx. What are your thoughts and concerns with these proposals coming in?
You know, it's really good to have clean energy. I mean, we all know it's necessary. We know that it's important that we get off of fossil fuels. We know the impact it's had on our communities for decades, especially economically oppressed communities of color. especially in Mount Haven and Port Morris in the South Bronx. So we're welcome new technology that will lead us in the right direction. The only problem we see potentially is it going to be clean from the supply or from supply to service? Mm-hmm. That's a problem. I mean, we have to make sure that the transmission lines that this new power supply that will be traveling through will not impact our community adversely, will not cause any more health concerns or health problems that we've already been overburdened with.
Right. Thank you for that, Mychal. And let's talk about that transmission line just to inform our viewers who may not be familiar. So recently, Congressman Richie Torres joined the community and advocates in the South Bronx to share that a power converter station and transmission lines proposed to be built in the Bronx Terminal Market will be moved to a non-residential area. Is this still a win for the community? And what are your thoughts? Just give us a little bit of background on the HVDC converter station and transmission lines as well, if you can.
Yes, that is a win. It's always great when we have, our elected officials are really advocates for the concerns we have. I think the situation of having a converter station on the Bronx Terminal Mall, where people go shop, where they bring their children, their families, and across the street from what would be the Children's Museum. So relocating from there is a good thing, but where does it go from there? I think some of the comments from Clean Path was that, or their statement was it was going to go to an industrial area away from residential. Unfortunately, all of our residential areas are close to industrial facilities. Mm-hmm. Only really one area we think is a siting location potentially for that. And it's still problematic because that area is the Harlem River Yards. And we have a waterfront plan that's been prioritized by the state since 2016 to create green space and waterfront access for residents who haven't had access to our peninsula for decades. Wow. So that's still support.
So that may set back those plans in order to bring these new plans in place. And something I want to note to the community is that there are 5 other proposals being submitted to NYSERDA. So there are things that we don't know. Are there any other plans being proposed in the Bronx? Where are these plans going to be? Where are these plots and energy stations and transfer stations going to be created in our community? We don't know. There are a lot of things that the community doesn't know, right, Mychal? And is that a big issue, communication and not being involved in that process?
Definitely. And we've already sent the letter to NYSERDA asking these kind of key questions about process. We should know the routes that are proposed by these 5 respondents to this RFP that NYSERDA released for this New York Renewable Tier 4 project that would bring clean energy into the New York City area, 15% of New York City's energy. Mm-hmm. But what's the route? And what's the impact on the electromagnetic field on human beings? And how close will that come in proximity to us? And where will they be located? And so it's a lot of the details of the plans have not been unveiled. And the information is something we've had to dig deep to get, even to find out the respondents. Chippy is one. It's a Champaign, Hudson, Power, Energy Collaborative. They're bringing energy or hydroelectromagnetic energy down from Hydro-Quebec in Canada, which is itself is a really confrontation, really a project that's being fought by the indigenous people in Canada. What it mean for them? How can we support something that's going to harm someone else? Wow. But also, how can we support something that's going to hurt the already overburdened and disadvantaged communities like the South Bronx? We have the fourth Clean Path, which was related, and New York Power Authority coming together to create their plan. We also have Rise Light, which is an entity that owns the Ravenswood station in Queens, and there's a couple others. But we don't know their plans in totality. Okay. We know they've been looking forward to this for a while. I mean, we have we have the CLCPA, which is the Clean Climate Leadership Advancement Protection Act, and it's the CLCPA, and it's a law that they have to do this in a certain way. That NYSERDA has to look at disadvantaged communities and make sure we're not going to be overburdened again. So we just want to make sure the law is held up. We don't make sure NYSERDA is really open and notorious about what the plan means to us.
Right. Thank you for that, Mychal. And going back to those plans that you mentioned, and the fact that the Bronx is ranked the unhealthiest county in New York State, as we know, with a place called Asthma Alley here in the South Bronx, where we're both from. What are some of the most impactful environmental infrastructures in the Bronx today, contributing to environmental racism and these negative outcomes, as well as these high COVID-19 asthma rates? I mean, COVID-19 rates. Sorry about that.
Yes. No. Well, first, it started off with Robert Moses creating the Cross Bronx Expressway. And that created two more highway systems, connected those Cross Bronx and made an encirclement around the South Bronx with the Deegan and the Bruckner Expressway, actually choking our residents with diesel and carcinogens coming from exhaust. We also have the largest significant maritime industrial area in the city, the Mott Haven, Port Morris, and Hunts Point Peninsula, bringing more than 16,000 diesel trucks to our communities every day. So I think what made us more susceptible to coronavirus and COVID-19 was our pre-existing health conditions because of PM 2.5, like particulate matter coming from diesel exhaust, causing a lot of respiratory problems with high rates of asthma, diabetes, cancer, really affected our community and made us more susceptible. And even we lost a lot more people because of it. Because of our pre-existing health conditions, because of the built environment.
Right. And the big ticket item on a lot of these plans and proposals coming to the Bronx are jobs. Included in President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure bill. He mentions jobs and the creation of jobs through energy sector and all of these things that are coming to the country. What do you think this bill will mean for environmental justice in the Bronx? Is it a good thing or bad thing, Mychal?
It should be a good thing. I think we need infrastructure that will hopefully reduce some of the burden we've had to carry and shoulder for decades. I mentioned the highway systems that traverse our neighborhoods, the industrial sightings of facilities on our peninsula, not using maritime industrial areas efficiently, where we're using more of the water for transporting rather than trucks, creating green jobs, creating solar panels that will help get us off of peaker plants and these peaker plants that are inundating our community. We have 4 in the South Bronx. When Pataki some 20 plus years ago put 11 around the state, he put 4 here. But the same thing is happening in Queens and in Brooklyn, where communities of color or EJ communities are the ones who suffer the burden. So infrastructure is important to increase, to decrease some of the negative impacts we've been faced with because of the lack of infrastructure.
Right. And the big question is why? Why do these things end up here in our community, Mychal? Why do you think that is?
Pataki's excuse was the land is cheap, right? It's also economically oppressed communities of color don't have the representation historically than more economically affluent communities that are white, just to be honest. The situation in South Bronx is different than the situation in Riverdale. The concentration of industrial facilities in our community is much higher than that in Riverdale, and so is our asthma hospitalization rates. So it happens to us not just in South Bronx, but in Detroit, Michigan, Flint, right, in the South, all over the country, in indigenous areas as well. We are the ones who shoulder the burden for these harmful environmental contaminants.
Right.
And that's a stop.
For sure. It's definitely a tale of two cities here in the Bronx. Within one borough, how many different changes, and the spectrum is just wide here when it comes to environmental justice. So as the South Bronx, of course, continues to grow in investment and gentrification, can you share how the EJ battle shifted from right to breathe to right to stay?
Yeah, I mean, when we looked at our EJ battles around public land and what's occurred on our peninsula with Mario Cuomo, then governor, giving away 106 acres of waterfront land to a campaign contributor, Gillespie Group, for 99 years. We looked at land as being like the precursor, the nucleus of how all these environmental harms have taken place. We looked at how we now, not only do we have to stay, we have to be able, in staying, meaning that we have to be able to control our public land. We also have to make sure that real estate speculation does not push us out. We make sure that our folks can actually stay here. We've actually made this borough what it is and what made our community what it is. And that should not be at the expense of market rate forces that increase rents, increase taxes, and displace folks who've been here for decades.
Right. Thank you for that, Mychal. And I know SBU also advocates for civic engagement in the community. And this upcoming general election actually includes a ballot measure on the state constitutional right to clean air, clean water, and a healthful environment. What is the importance of voting on this measure this coming November? Please share.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, it should be should be a human right that we have clean air and clean water. It shouldn't have to be something that you have to do an amendment to our state constitution that would require it to be respected. It's a life or death issue. We don't have clean air in the South Bronx. Actually, clean air comes at a cost, meaning you have to be more economically fluent and maybe even a different race to receive clean air in New York City. So you're talking about the Tale of Two Cities in the Bronx. It's Tale of Two Cities also in New York City. Something that de Blasio spoke about ending, right? But that did not end. It just kept manifesting itself. And so the amendment is important. People should vote yes. It's a no-brainer. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need healthier lives, outcomes, and we need not to be forced to suffer the burden from all the cumulative impacts of these different entities playing off each other. The highway system, the significant maritime industrial area, the heavy diesel truck intensive businesses, all causing unhealthier outcomes, which we'll talk about, made us one of the most unhealthy county of all the 62 counties in the state of New York.
Thank you so much again, Mychal, for your time today. I wish we had more time, and we appreciate you joining us here on BronxNet. You're welcome back anytime. You can follow South Bronx Unite on social media. You can also visit southbronxunite.org to find out more information about this incredible movement that has been holding it down here in the South Bronx. Thank you, Mychal, again.
My pleasure, and thank you for doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Mychal. I walk in great shoes. So we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday. Welcome back. A new and upcoming docuseries seeks to educate viewers about the Bronx by taking a deeper look into New York City's most underrated borough. Let's check out the short trailer.
My name is Shay Marie G, and I am a Bronx girl. The Bronx nurtured me, and this is a place where I learned the importance of home. So when I hear of all the negative things people have to say about the Bronx, I take it personally. I get offended off the rip. But then I realize people don't get what the Bronx has to offer, from universities, historical landmarks, and the impact it has on NYC's economic foundation. And this is why I decided to get a group of Bronx enthusiasts together and produce The X. The X is a TV show that explores all the beautiful things about the Bronx. Let's give the Bronx its flowers today. And this is why we need you. With every donation, we'll be able to pay for production, licensing, and if we hit our highest goals, we'll be able to incorporate community development. We will take a deeper look into the Bronx's neighborhoods, cultures, and shine a light on all the hidden gems that lie beneath the concrete of the Bronx, New York. Our goal is to reveal the Bronx's history. Whether you're from New York or a person who admires this beautiful city from afar, the Bronx has value and its story needs to be told. So please help us make history as the first show by the Bronx and for the Bronx. Help us produce The X.
I couldn't agree more. The Bronx gets a bad rep, and this show is trying to distinguish that. So joining us now to share more about The X, a docuseries about the Bronx, are creator and host Shay Marie G and director Vega Montanez. Welcome to you both, and congratulations on such an incredible project.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm so glad you said my name so right. That was amazing. I haven't
Montanez.
been able to say like that in a while.
I'm like, this is a primo. He's probably Dominican. I gotta say it right. So
Super
without further ado, please share more about your doc, the docuseries The X.
Oh my gosh, the X is so necessary. So I was so tired of hearing nothing but negative things about the Bronx. Like they spit it on the news, and even in New York culture, you tell somebody you're from the Bronx and they automatically like, the Bronx. And I wanted to change that narrative. So I'm like, I have to create something to change this. And that's when I decided to create The X.
Awesome. It sounds amazing. And I definitely can, kind of empathize with that same feeling. I've been working in the Bronx for the past 4 years, but when I was working outside of it, that was always the thing, like a stereotype because I'm from the Bronx. What do you do over there? You get on the train and you go past 161 or whatever, once you hit 149, you're in the Bronx. But I want to learn more about your roles on the docuseries and where you're both from in the Bronx, if you can share.
Okay, so I'm born and raised in the South Bronx, Soundview section of the Bronx. I now live in Pelham Bay, and I am the creator and director, and I've been tapping into my writing skills as well.
Dope.
And I work as director and producer, making sure everything comes together the way it needs to, and all the shots look good, the story's great. I am on the west side of the Bronx, on by University, by the George Washington Bridge. All the hills and all that. And I spent half of my life in Providence, Rhode Island, which is out of state. So that's kind of where my attachment is, where I was born and raised here in the Bronx, spent some time in Providence, and this is still where I call home whenever, I'm on the East Coast primarily. So
I hear that. So Shay, as the creator and producer, why was it personal and important for you to highlight the beauty, light, and history of the Bronx?
I feel like it's important for our culture and it's important for our children to know that they're from a place of value. I know that as a child, people used to say, oh, you're a Bronx girl. And I know that affects people and it affects everyone, honestly. So I really, really wanted to give something of value and of quality to show people that, there's so many amazing things that they just don't know about. So that when they talk about the Bronx, they can talk about the Bronx with pride.
Word. I hear that too. Go ahead.
And to piggyback on that is when Shay presented the idea to me, I sat back and thought about it. And there aren't a lot of documentaries that highlight these deeper stories in any of the boroughs, right? So I was like, what better place to pick than the Bronx? What's recognized as one of the most impoverished, areas in the country, let alone the state, right? So there's a lot of information and interesting stuff to talk about that hasn't really had the opportunity to shine or be highlighted because some things about the Bronx history are overlooked in the media.
Absolutely. And, we did see a trailer just now. We saw some amazing drone shots that you shot, Vega, and some of those other shots that you had. What made you come on board as a director of this project, and how are you shooting the Bronx in order to show this beauty? What is your angle as a cinematographer?
So like I said, the biggest thing that brought me on board was simply that whole dynamic. If we're in 2021 and literally if you go back, 30 years or 40 years at this point, the Bronx looked like a war zone. There were buildings that weren't even finished being put up yet. So there's just a lot of information there that I think is really interesting to get out to people. And then as far as the overall direction, the biggest focus that we have is on community development. So we are really highlighting the local businesses, the impact of big business coming to small areas and how that affects things. Quick tease into the first episode, but we talk a lot about the Joker stairs, right? And the actual impact that version of tourism had on the Bronx, right? Because people were coming in here and creating all this massive traffic jam and making it impossible for people to walk by. But then they were still too scared to go into the bodega and buy something or go into the local restaurant to buy something. So all that money was still making its way into Manhattan. So little things like that.
Shay and I are over here shaking our heads like, yes. Obviously, you know what he's talking about because you're talking about production, but I am right there with you. Yes, they weren't going into the bodegas to help out. And the bodega owners themselves even had these concerns. When this film came into the scene, came to the Bronx, and there were location scouts and everything, it makes me wonder, how do they even find these spots and who do they inquire with to come into our community?
Over $1 billion was revenue for that film, and 0% of it was put back into the Bronx. 0% of it was put back into the upkeep of those stairs, and it's very sad. It's very sad.
So you gave us a little bit of a sneak peek on what people can expect to learn on episode 1. It's a deep dive into the Joker stairs and the Joker film. Can you give us a little bit more without giving too much away?
That's tough. Okay, so we're gonna be digging deep into movies that were shot in the Bronx and going to those neighborhoods and talking about those movies and talking about the impact that those productions have had or lack of to the Bronx, New York.
Heard it. Thank you for being safe with the answer too. Not trying to give too much away. They gotta wait for episode 1 to come out. So what do you think are the culprits of the Bronx? How and why do you think the Bronx has gotten a bad rap over the past couple of years or decades? Really?
I'll say, as somebody who left and came back, one of the biggest things that I find is, New Yorkers have a reputation for having a certain aggressiveness to us. But the Bronx is a huge example of that, right? And if you think about what people who have been in the Bronx for the past 50 years have really survived, it's hard to be upset about it, but I think that really ties into it, along with the fact that the majority of the Bronx is still heavily populated by minorities. You can kind of point out the small sections that are owned and operated by people who are not of color within the Bronx, as opposed to some of the other boroughs that are a little more well divided. So I think that makes a big impact on it.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know, the people of color had to fight to live in the Bronx. A lot of the, or even to the 80s, it was all owned by Italians or all owned by the Irish. And, they wouldn't rent to people of color. They wouldn't let people buy property. And we literally had to fight to be here. So now that we're here, people are giving it a negative kind of, you know what I'm saying? And it's no. You need to really take a look and take a second to really appreciate the history, to understand why things are the way that they are.
Yes. So I'm guessing we're also going to be learning about redlining in the Bronx. You gave another hint there.
There's a lot of conversations that we have planned for the entirety of the first season, right? Where all of our focus as far as everything that we've outlined so far, which is why it's critical to get these funds and to get this support through Kickstarter, because not only does this help us with paying our staff and paying our team, but it also helps us acquire bigger opportunities and interviews. So with our first teaser episode, all of the dialogue and conversation around the Joker stairs is developed and created and researched by us, right? But it'd be great if we had the resources to be able to go out and say, hey, let's talk directly to somebody from Warner Brothers Studio and have them address this directly, right? Maybe they have a different side of the story that we don't know about or we don't understand yet. And kind of having those big opportunities present themselves for us and getting the rights and permits to access certain places we want to tell stories about, that's really what the Kickstarter is going to be helping get to.
Right. Yeah, Shay, if you want to elaborate a little more on the Kickstarter campaign, I was definitely going to ask about that next. What will you need help with moving forward? How many episodes have you gotten under your belt so far? And what will you need
We're currently writing episode 3. We shot the Kickstarter and we shot episode 1, so thank God we were able to have funds for that. But for right now, like Vega just said, our main goal is to get the funding so that we're able to pay the staff and able to get the licensings to get the things that we need to get. There are also like rewards with the Kickstarter, so there will be partnership opportunities for small businesses to come in and join the team so that they can actually gain from the production as well, not only from a standpoint of being able to have recognition, but also being able to financially, benefit from the production as well.
Where can people support your project and find out more about the X?
So the Kickstarter right now is launched on Kickstarter. So you can just click the link on our Kickstarter. You can go to our Instagram page and you can actually go to the Kickstarter right there. And our email is there. And we're also looking for people to join the team. If anyone who is a Bronx enthusiast who wants to come, we are open and welcome. We have a team of amazing writers that are so amazing, and they're all Bronx, all from the Bronx. Everyone's from the Bronx. And we're just looking to develop our team. Yes, Bronx Pride.
Love to see it. Love to hear it. Thank you both so much for joining us. And that Instagram page is _TV show. You can follow them there and find out more about their Kickstarter campaign and docuseries coming soon to the Bronx. Thank you both so much for your time today and for sharing more.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
No problem. So that's all for our show today. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.